Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome in. Happy Monday. We have to do a short show, Johnny, because I gotta go do my taxes. It's almost April 15th, so gonna be
I did my
a shorter one,
taxes over a month ago,
probably in February.
and I'll tell you,
I'm
my
just thinking about-
taxes are wild to deal with. My stack of taxes by the time it's done is a folder like massive. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But it is a Monday. We are excited for a good week. Ever closer to the draft. Got lots to get through. Do you want to start with the new guy? We were talking about some of the fun interceptions.
I think we'll get to him as we roll through the show, because he's part of what I think is happening here and what's starting to coalesce into the vision. And I will say that what's starting to coalesce is lining up a lot with what I've been talking about the last couple weeks. I'm just saying that.
Almost like you called it, kind of thing. Maybe.
I'm not going to take a victory lap yet, because we're still what 10 days away from the NFL draft. I mean, it's coming up quick. Like we're staring down the pipeline of the draft. This is a weird draft for the 49ers, like we only have 6 picks, but they're all in the top 4 rounds. So it's kind of wild that but you don't have a 3rd round pick. It's weird to have 3 4th round picks or 4 4th round picks and a 1st and 2nd. Like that just feels weird. So anyways, with Captain Niner, I'll say we don't even get all of our important documentation that is coming in from all the different places until the end of January. So I can't even do mine in January. Most of the time I'm not getting the last of the documents that I need until end of February. So that's how I am.
Truth be told, that was a joke. I needed an extension. I'm waiting on things. I started 3 companies last year. So
when you have independent stuff going on, it gets wild, man. Like there's so many different things that and if you aren't on it, you're paying a lot more in taxes than you should be. Anyways. Also, that's why I go to a CPA. But
Boo Uncle Sam for sure is the move.
I will say though, I've got to be her easiest client, because I come in and I have everything itemized into categories, like everything already added up. Like there's no arithmetic that happens in there. It's literally I'm using her for their cool CPA software to make sure that I don't have any errors and it gets sent off, and I'll hopefully never get audited, because that literally sounds like the worst. But what we are auditing is the 49ers' top 30 visits.
I like the segue. I like it.
That have been confirmed.
Let's get
it. Because now we don't have all of them. We are still missing a huge chunk of information here, because there's 8 that we know of. That leaves another 22. Now, I will also say the 49ers don't always use their top 30 visits. or used their 30 visits, in-person visits. They've also had a number of virtual interviews and phone conversations with different players. But right now, confirmed is they have brought in 5 wide receivers: Denzel Boston, Chris Brazel II, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., and then Caleb Douglas from Texas Tech. They've also brought in 2 defensive ends, Romello Height from Texas Tech and Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida. And then there's 1 safety they've brought in, Cole Wisniewski from Texas Tech. They brought in a bunch of Texas kids. I'm just going to say. Now, there's also another guy who he said that he had a visit with the 49ers. Hasn't been reported by anybody else, but corner from Texas, another Texas kid, Malik Muhammad. Somebody I've liked. I have liked this kid. I really liked him at the Senior Bowl. And then when I was watching the tape from Bisontis, the Muhammad kid kept popping on film. Like he kept showing up, and you couldn't help but notice because it was I was watching Texas's defense, and so really liked a lot. Love the way he filled against the run on the outside, and he was a good coverage kid. And then in their virtual interviews, they've interviewed Brent Austin, cornerback from Cal, Austin Barber, the tackle from Florida that I've talked about, Greg Crippen from Michigan, Alex Harkey from Oregon, then linebacker Nikai Hill Green from Alabama, Roll Tide, running back Cash Jones from Georgia, and then punter Tyler Perkins from Iowa State. That's a little
Okay.
They've also had a private or semi-private workout with Kevin Jabity from Syracuse, and then Dominique Orange from Iowa State. And then they've had a bunch of different meetings with different guys during the different times. And this starts to kind of coalesce a vision. And what I'm seeing is you see 4 wide receivers who are all projected to be somewhere between 20 and 40. I think that's what's really starting to come into picture here. And that is where the 49ers are doing the lion's share of their homework. Again, this comes down to, it just tells me, and again, this may be confirmation bias, but I truly believe the 49ers are going wide receiver at 27. And so just because of, and I don't want to, go over the same trail over and over again, but I just feel like with the way that they go about roster construction, with where the needs have been, especially considering last year, what they want to do to surround Brock Purdy with weapons, what happened with Brandon Ayuk, the non-long-term vision of Mike Evans, the uncertainty with Ricky Pearsall, they need to bring in another dynamic weapon into the receiver room. Jacob Cowing missed an entire year. I get, and I was as high on Jacob Cowing during this last offseason as everybody, because you end up with all the reports coming out that he was nearly unguardable and that he was just amazing in OTAs and minicamp and training camp up until he pulled his hammy, and then continually re-aggravated that hamstring until the playoffs, where he had his practice window opened, but was never even returned to the active roster. Yeah. You have Jordan Watkins there, who, very talented athlete that showed on college film. He had a very limited route tree at Ole Miss. And so I remember, I think I commented on that. We went over some of his film, that he just had a smaller route tree and it was going to be a big learning curve. So, he's a very physically gifted guy, but are you going to rely on him? And, going into next year, I don't think so. I think you're going wide receiver with that first pick. So, I just don't think that they're not going to go wide receiver, and I think they've done some homework on a couple defensive ends, because it's going to be wide receiver or edge. And so Romello Height, Malachi Lawrence, 2 guys who really high physicals as far as the burst and off the ball. Like you're talking about the low, like the best of the 10-yard splits. there between Malachi Lawrence and Romello Height. Those two guys were, and that's what the 49ers want. They need that speed rusher, right? This is that Bryce Huff role. The challenge you have is how much more resources are you going to dump into edge at this point? If you're looking at, okay, we spent a fifth. One of the reasons we don't have a 5th round pick this year is because we sent one to the Jets for Bryce Huff, and Bryce Huff went and retired. And then you also sent a draft pick for Keon White, who is still on the team. He's kind of that edge, Sam O, bigger edge, can rush from inside guy. And you traded there. And then you also traded a 3rd round pick for an interior guy in Osa Odigizua. You've invested last year's 1st round pick, Michael Williams at edge. I just don't know how many more resources you can continue to pour into. And I get it. Like, you got to build, and you got to build the dominant D line. At some point, these things have got to start paying off, and you can't just keep throwing resources at that because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. The offense was undermanned last year. They didn't have enough weapons last year. You've got to get some weapons on there on the offensive side because, they were making chicken salad out of some chicken manure on offense last year that we saw. Our punter didn't punt for almost 3 whole games. And our top
the month of December. Yeah.
And our top receiver during that time was Jennings, who is still unsigned on the open market. Yeah. Like, let's think about that. Our top wide receiver during that stretch was Jauan Jennings, who is still a free agent right now. You've got to get more explosive in the receiver room.
Let me ask you about him. Let me ask you a cool question there. Is there a way? I don't follow the salary cap the way you do, and the way is it Jason that we have on sometimes? Yeah. So I want to ask you: is there a path based on everything that you've said where 3rd and Jauan is a Niner? I feel like it does. It just doesn't make sense. At some point, he's gonna move on before he takes a snap with us this year. But is that maybe not the move?
No, you don't bring Jauan Jennings back because what value add is he bringing as far as like one of the problems you have enough slow receivers on your team. You have DeMarcus Robinson, bigger bodied, slower receiver. It should have been a touchdown against the Eagles with on the second play of the game. Yeah, but he was 5 yards behind the defense and still didn't score a touchdown. You have Mike Evans, who is the much upgraded version of Jauan Jennings. Why are you bringing Jauan Jennings back? That doesn't make sense to me.
Play his natural position. His natural position is not a number one or a number two.
And now he's got it. Now he's got to take. But he's got to take snaps from somebody. And if you put Jennings, Mike Evans, and DeMarcus Robinson out there on the field, who is stretching the defense? Like, who is going to make those safeties retreat? Nobody's doing that from that group. You need to kind of hover over Mike Evans because he's such a physical threat, but you need speed, and I get it. They got Christian Kirk, but Jauan Jennings is going to take snaps away from Christian Kirk in that situation. And if I have Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall on the field, who brings me more value of what they can do to a defense, Jauan Jennings or Christian Kirk? Christian Kirk is a home run hitter. He's an explosive guy. He's got great speed. I'm putting him out there. Or a 1st round pick. Like, if you bring Jauan Jennings back, they're not going 1st round on a wide receiver. And I just don't see it. Like, the math isn't mathing.
And that's what I thought. I just want to double check. What about this? Let's check in with Cayman's Island. What's up, man? Thank you for the super chat. Asks, I feel a trade coming up or down. What are you thinking there?
And we've talked about it on the in our text messages back and forth. Cayman, I just don't think the 49ers are going to trade away their 1st round pick. They're not, like, unless it's trading back to like 30, 31, 32
to stay in the first.
It's going to stay in the 1st round. They won't drop past 32. You're like, the only time they've ever traded back in the 1st round was when they went from 2 to 3. right? That they went back and they got extra picks, and they ended up then using some of those picks to trade back into the first round. They've only traded back once. That was one spot, and they've traded up into the first round several times because they value that fifth year option. It just is a bigger part of the roster construction, salary cap management. They see the value of that fifth year option on a rookie deal as huge for your roster construction and cap management. So they're not trading out of the first round. If they trade away a first round pick, it's got to be for a position that is going to save them an incredible amount of money, like quarterback that they did for Trey Lance. They traded away 2 first round picks to move up to go. And that was moving up in the first round to get a quarterback that was going to save them because they didn't want to pay Jimmy Garoppolo as one of the top paid quarterbacks in the league. And so they wanted to get a quarterback on a rookie deal because when you would, at that time, at 2020, when you looked over the previous 10 Super Bowls, I think it was every Super Bowl featured at least one team with a quarterback on a rookie deal because of the value of having that position at a premium pay savings. And so you can build a really, really good team with that. They've got to save money on these to have the highest paid tight end, to have the highest paid running back, to have the highest paid linebacker. Those positions they're willing to pay premium to keep their guys, but they don't want to pay the highest paid wide receiver because that's an incredible expense. They don't like paying guys outside of quarterback more than 13-14% of the cap. They don't like doing it. So that's what it comes down to. I have a hard. They might trade back in the second round, maybe if you move back maybe to the end of the second round or early third, and you pick up another third. Like if for example a team at the end of the second round is trying to move up, do you get their second round pick and their third round pick? That's where I could see a trade happening. But it depends on who's left or who's on the board. Like
As it always does. Yeah, for
as
sure.
it always does. Because for me, if I'm looking at their roster construction saying they need a left guard, if say Keelan Rutledge is there, or for some reason Bisontis is there, like the guys we talked about last week, I don't think that they would pass that up because you have to have a starter out of this draft. If there's 4 guys at they're at 54 or 58, and there's 4 guys that they see could be a plug and play guard for them, like some of the guys that we talked about last week. Jalen Farmer might still be there. If Jennings Dunker's still there, Bo Stevens is still there, then you start saying, okay, we're going to get at least one of these guys if we trade back to say 62. And we then get another third round pick. I do think they want to add picks in this draft. They like more picks. 6 is really light, but that's also because you've been trading for different players, and people keep saying wish lists of, do we trade for this guy? I'm like, nah, they don't have, like 6 is thin as it is. They're not trading away more picks at this point. They need to gather some. Can they swing some sort of a deal to get a 7th round pick for Brandon Ayuk? Will somebody, kind of be interested there? I think, is there somebody else on the team that might draw maybe a 6th or 7th round pick, maybe an Isaac Guerrero? Somebody's going to look at that speed at running back and say, we could really use a return guy, right? Because if you send a 6th or 7th, you'll do that for special teams, but it just becomes hard because they traded away a lot of this year's draft capital, right? You traded for Brian Robinson, traded for Keon White, traded for Bryce Huff. That was all draft capital from this year. And so we're paying the price now. And it's hard because 2 of those guys aren't on the team. And that's a little bit frustrating because they said the reason why they weren't as aggressive this year in some trade scenarios is because they needed a guy who was going to help them out, not only this year, but also next year. And then now you have 2 guys who you traded away draft capital for from this draft that aren't helping you in 2026. Now, I get it. Bryce Huff is not on them. Dude walked away. That's his prerogative. But I think the way that this is starting to shape out, I just feel like when you have those 4 receivers in that are all slated to be around 27, you're looking at all these guys and saying, is there somebody we're going to disqualify from 27? Because if that might be the only, then we need to have a backup plan, and it's going to be one of these two defensive ends. Because if Denzel Boston's not there, if KC's not there, if Omar Cooper's not there, and if you have the concerns over Chris Brazel's character stuff, then you've got Romello Height, Malachi Lawrence that you're looking at. I think that's how it goes. But yeah, I just feel like that's how it's shaking out, that they're gonna go wide receiver, they're gonna go guard first and second round, and then you start looking at those other 4 picks to fill out some areas of depth and need that you need. You need a speed rusher, you need another defensive tackle, you need a safety. I think those are 3 positions that we're sure they're gonna get. They could use a tight end. I would love for them to get Sam Roush, but I feel like they're gonna take running back. I just do. And I don't like that. If it came down to picking a great blocking tight end or a running back who's probably going to be third or fourth on the depth chart, I'm saying
tight end.
Get the tight end.
Yeah.
You have some guys that are in the building that I think if you're looking at that third, fourth, fifth running back roles, you got guys that can be there for that.
Right. I agree. Tight end for sure for me. Does anyone jump off the page based on these guys that have, like, I have followed IU because my partner in crime with Sports Idiot Nation, one of my best friends, Miles, he went to IU, helped out the football team when he was at school there, did some video work and worked really closely with the football team. So it's a soft spot in my heart to watch IU football. And so, man, that wide receiver jumps out for me, obviously. Just kind of a semi homer, but for you, who jumps out to you as like, okay, they met with the team, I kind of like that?
Austin Barber. I like him. I haven't talked a lot about him, but it was actually, I put on the tape to watch Jake Slaughter, and Austin Barber kept catching my eye. And I think he could be somebody who could be a versatile offensive lineman. I think he could play guard or tackle. I think he would be brought in as a swing tackle. If they draft him again, I'm not sold that they're going to do that because they signed a guy to be their swing tackle. So I will say Kevin Jabity is interesting.
Giggity.
Giggity. Yeah. He's interesting. I don't know. That was a private or semi-private workout. I would just wonder what they were looking for. Why they had to bring him in for an individual workout. And the one thing that is always challenging with these, as somebody had said, sometimes there's smoke screens. Sometimes they'll sit there and do 15 visits with a position of all these top guys to try and hide the fact that they're going a different position because they don't want somebody. I mean, because this is a challenge. You're sitting there. If you're wanting like a Malachi Lawrence there at 27, and somebody gets wind of that and they really want that guy, they're going to be calling the Bills at 26 and saying, can we jump up here and get the guy that the 49ers want? So there is smoke screens there, but when it comes down to this of like, I see a pattern, like a clustering of guys that are pretty consensus seen as, that between 20 and 40 area of being picked as wide receivers. That just tells me they believe that one of those guys is going to be there. And I think they're just trying to see what's going to happen. I would love Omar Cooper to be there because it's fascinating what we looked at the film of what they can do with him with the ball in his hands. I just think he would be, because of the way of the Indiana's offense was with so many RPOs, so many screens, so many different options, and how he could draw gravity on those kind of plays at Indiana. I just look at this would be like hand in glove for Buffalo. Like they need a guy who can do that and take some of the attention off of Josh Allen. And you would see Josh Allen's rushing numbers go up because of Omar Cooper. And so I don't think he's going to make it past the Bills. I just don't. But if he's there, I would love him.
Yeah, Callie agrees and says, I don't think Cooper Jr. makes it past Buffalo for sure. Um, okay, what about we've seen a few additions on our roster. Is this a little bit late in the game? I'm trying to go back the last couple years. Do we typically add like these DBs or right two
No,
weeks
so
before the
in
draft?
case anybody missed it, what was it, Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, I
The
texted
49ers
you.
signed Jack Jones, who was as a free agent. He's it's an interesting addition. The guy's started, what's it, 33 games over the last 2 years. He started 16 games in 2024 for the Raiders and 17 games last year for the Dolphins. Got 4 interceptions over the last 2 years and 22 passes defensed during that time, 2 more forced fumbles. So an interesting addition. And I think it speaks to that they're not going to go corner in this draft. I don't think I just don't see them loading up like making the kind of signings that they've had with Nate Hobbs and Jack Jones and having Renardo Green on a rookie deal, Diamador Lenore on the big contract they got him, and they really like Demo. They really like Upton Stout. And then you also have Darrell Luter already there. Now you've got 6 defensive backs that, unless they're looking to replace Darrell Luter, which I haven't seen any signs that they wanting to, um, this speaks to a veteran addition, a guy that you're expecting to
Yeah,
be there,
depth.
and that is a depth piece. That should there be some struggles on the mental side from Renardo Green or Darrell Luter,
Yeah,
that they can plug these guys in and they believe, okay, we're going to have
he's a
somebody who
serviceable.
will
Yeah,
be a serviceable backup. He's nothing world beating. This isn't like they went out and signed Richard Sherman in his prime in any sort of way. It just speaks to that they're building depth
Sauce
there. So
Gardner.
I don't think they're going to I just don't think they're going to draft corner. And this tells me they've looked at the corner class and they've said, we're good on this. We have other areas that are much more pressing. And we can backfill this with some cheaper free agents. Because I mean, Jack Jones is a 1-year deal. These are 1 year, these are rentals, these are guys to get you to the next draft. So and the Dre Greenlaw deal kind of also does that with linebacker, plugs that hole. They're not going linebacker in this draft. I don't think they are. They invested Nick Martin. They've got D Winners. You got Fred Warner there. You've got Dre Greenlaw. I think they feel really good about those 4. Now, I understand the things with Nick Martin. I've had concerns about that and his health and stuff, but and they brought back Luke Gifford. So they've got 5 guys that I think they like their linebacker room. So I don't think they're going to bring anybody in as far as uh in this draft when you only have 6 picks. They're going to address offensive line, they're going to address wide receiver, they're going to address edge. Like those are the 3 areas that I think you can absolutely count on that they're going to address in this draft.
They have a couple picks in the fourth round, right?
At 4.
Yeah, I think they trade one of those to get more picks. I'll call that right now. I'll call my shot. I think they ended up
Think they're going to
trading
trade one for maybe a 5th and a 7th?
something like that. Yeah, just so that they have more draft capital, like we talked about. That's something that they have done. I mean, typically teams don't have that many picks in one single round. I mean, that's why I
Yeah, I
think they
will
can.
say I do like that because I think there's going to be really good value. I think the
Yeah,
value in this class, I think it really nosedives after the 5th round. Like it really does. Um, this is just not as deep of a draft class. Next year's draft class, like if you want to stockpile picks, it's for the 2027 draft. I think this draft. I also think people are saying they should go get offensive tackle. I think there's going to be a run on tackles in the first round. This is why I think that wide receiver is going to be a good spot for them because people are saying Caleb Lamu is going to be there or Spencer Fano. I don't see it. I think there's going to be a run on tackles because when you look at this tackle class, it drops off after the first like 7, 8, 9 guys. There's a big drop off. This isn't like you go from second round to third round grades. This like goes from second, third round grades to sixth round grades. Like there's a big drop off in this tackle class. Same thing with defensive tackle. It's not nearly as deep. So, and there's a big wedge, I think, between there. I think the deepest areas of this class are wide receiver. There's some guys that, if they don't go wide receiver, there are some interesting guys. I think like Keon Coleman, I've talked about him from Missouri, really love him as a route runner. I think Tyron Montgomery, the kid from forgetting the name of the college, it's a Division III school. I have it somewhere in my stack of notes here. But he would be a really interesting kid. I think somebody's going to take a flyer on him in the 6th or 7th. So if you get a 6th or 7th round pick, that would be interesting. I think there's, we've talked about like Jacoby Lane and Malachi Fields, and I think there's guys like Ted Hurst that will be there in those mid rounds that are very intriguing. But you've got to address some areas of need, and they can't come out of this draft without a guard that can play day one. Like they cannot do that. So unfortunately, they're not going best player available. You've got to come out of this draft with some dynamic playmakers at wide receiver. Like you have got to, you've got to get younger and faster and more explosive at wide receiver. You just have to. This is not an option. Christian Kirk is here on a 1-year deal. So even if you're like, well, they just signed Christian Kirk, he's here for 1 year. Mike Evans's deal is essentially a 1 to 2 year deal. These are not long-term deals. You've got to get younger, faster, and stock the cupboard. Yes, John Carroll University, somebody, New York Niners coming in with that one.
Yeah.
So they've got to do that. They've got to fill in another defensive tackle. They had 2 leave. They brought in 1. So you've got to get another defensive tackle in there. I don't know if they're going to try and play around with Keon White playing defensive tackle on base downs. He's right around 300 pounds. I don't know. I think he could be a nickel second down guy. I think he could be that as far as defensive tackle, but it would be interesting to see what they do there. They've got to add at least 2 defensive linemen. They've got to add an offensive lineman. They've got to add a wide receiver. So there's at least 4 of your 6 picks are spoken for. What those other 2, you might need to double dip on there, because then what you're banking on, if you take that route of 1 per, is that you've got to hit on 66% of your draft picks, which is real tough. That is tough to do in a draft. So, but that's how I think these top 30s, what they're telling us, the free agent signings that have come in, I don't expect them to, and they've got to get a safety because they only have 3 safeties. So,
yeah.
Bud Clark.
See how it goes.
Bud Clark from TCU.
All right. We gotta get out of here. Remember to take your phone and show it to Niner fans. We like to go every Monday and Friday. Of course, Johnny has his videos, and thank you to the members of the website that keep this thing rolling. If all things are a go, and Jesus doesn't come back before Friday, we hope to go Friday. I'm going to get you out of here on this. Not you, Johnny. You, A, are not faithful to the Bay, and B, not a big baseball guy. So I'm going to leave you with this. Hashtag okay or hashtag yikes. I'm starting it. Hashtag okay. Giants have the worst record in baseball. Are they okay, or is it time to say yikes? I know it's only 2 weeks. I started off hashtag okay. We'll leave you with that. Let us know in the chat if you are faithful to the Bay and a Giants fan. Put in hashtag okay if we're gonna wait and see, or hashtag yikes if you want to fire our new manager who has never managed in the major leagues, only at the college ranks. I'm gonna give him a shot. All right, so let us know in the chat. I had to poke a little fun at Johnny there. Trailblazer fan, not faithful to the Bay. A little dig on a Monday. On a Monday.
Trailblazers won last night. Give them their flowers.
No flowers. No. Faithful to the Bay.
Look,
no.
here's why I don't get into the Giants.
Jailblazers.
Okay, what does, that's like 30 years old, bro.
Hey, it just came out on Netflix though. It just came out.
Anyways, what like with baseball and managers, like this is what happens. People will get all upset at the managers. Somebody needs to explain to me what a manager does to make his team better throughout the year. I mean, come on. Like, especially when, okay, the lingo on the baseball field does not change from the time you're 6 years old through the major leagues. Keep your eye on the ball.
All right, turn
Gotta
two here.
catch
All
it.
right, all right, all right.
Gotta
Run it
catch
out.
it.
All right.
Gotta get your glove down. I'll
Go
never
Sharks.
understand that. Gotta catch it. Okay. Well,
We gotta go Sharks.
that's what I was missing. I was sitting here thinking I was supposed to let the ball go past me and then go get it. I was taught wrong this whole time. Wait on your pitch. Oh,
yeah. Oh,
thanks.
I didn't wait.
Man,
Yeah.
Salt cracked the code. I thought I was supposed to swing at every pitch that was thrown, whether it was over my head.
All right.
Like, what is these managers doing?
feisty.
Like, I don't like. It's like you set up the lineup. I think I could walk in there and set up a lineup, and you figure out, okay, this guy's going to be the first pitcher that you all throw like all the time, whatever. He's given up 5 innings. Call the bullpen. I could do that. Pay me $30 million a year. I mean, it's not like they're drawing up the all these great defensive plays, offensive plays. Guys, what we're going to do on this one is we want you to hit the ball over the fence. That's what our goal is on this one. Brilliant, coach. Like, I just don't see it.
This is a top 10 finish to our podcast, and we're almost at 300 episodes, and this is top 10 best finish we've ever done. But in the meantime and in between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Giants and 90.